Hmm. This is gonna be weird. This is the taco literacy YouTube. You're not gonna be able to see my students because we're on Hangouts. I'm trying this out. Let's see what happens. Anyway, so just you keep going. I'm gonna be talking to people, but they're gonna be in my class. I hope. Let's see. Well, hopefully they show up. All right. So I'm calling the class now. It's ringing. Hey. How about? Let me try this again. Uh, hey.
Hi, is it just me?
Hey. Well, at first I wasn't even just me. What's up? Hey, people might show up. I think it's out. So now if they have the link, they should be able to call in too. Hold on, buddy. It's kind of wait, no one joined my call. Somebody's typing something. Anyway, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
I don't know. This stuff is weird, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. How have your other classes been?
Okay, I already had two online, so
Cool.
it's not that big of a change for me. Mainly work's just changed.
Yeah, that's you. Oh, wait, hold on. It says, I'm trying to join, but it's not working. I'll be there soon. How does that work? She can join in still too, right? Hold on.
I don't know how the video call works. That's what I was confused when I started about too.
Actually, because I was doing this before, and then I saw that like I could do this thing where I just start filming. Hey, wait! Oh, there's people. I know her. Oh, all right. Look, it's funny how things work out. People do show up. All right. Well, if Alex could do it, then I know it's possible. What's up, Alex?
Hey, how's it going?
We're just saying, like, shit is weird.
Yeah, very.
Oh, well, hold on. I think one more person's coming in a second. I should tell you. Well, hold on. It might be really weird, and it might only last a little bit, but it's good to see the two of you. And then I have some other stuff online, and then I've been going through all your all's projects too. By the way, you all did two pretty cool ones, which I knew you would. And I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how this stuff is going, but your other classes are okay?
Yeah, I guess.
I guess.
It's weird. Everything's so different now.
And a lot of my my two classes that have switched online and stuff, it's just sort of confusing. Like the teachers don't really know what to do, and we're just kind of waiting to see what happens.
Right.
Right. Hey, look, another person. What's up, buddy? Things are kind of looking up. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to make it up as I go along. But that's what I usually do anyway. I mean, I'm doing like a lot of digital stuff, I guess. But like, at least if y'all can kind of like see each other and talk to each other and see how each other are doing. I think this platform is kind of okay. I'm trying to figure out while we're doing this, I'm recording it, but you can't see you. They can only see me, which I'll give to the students who couldn't be here. So they can kind of like go, so protect your privacy at least a little bit. Although you've already been on TV and shit, so I don't know. Well, Ariana, how are you, buddy?
Okay, allergies.
Yeah, everything like how your class is going besides that?
A mess. I feel like professors are only now really getting the hang of it. So.
Well, another way of saying that is they never had the hang of it in the first place. It's true.
Yeah, true.
I was worried about it because you probably have some professors who like barely know how to do email, and I'm like, oh shit, I don't know what they're gonna do.
I don't know. I'm hoping that they'll take this semester easy since nobody really knows what's going on.
Well, I guess maybe put it this way: how are y'all doing, like with your families, and is everything okay? Y'all doing okay?
Yeah, everyone's good.
Okay, good. How do you feel about like going outside and all that stuff? Are you staying inside, or what are y'all doing?
I'm not staying inside.
Yeah, I was in work all last week still, so I guess this week I'll see. I don't know.
Yeah. Are you guys nervous at all? How do you feel?
Not really.
No?
Yeah, I don't really know.
I guess I'm just nervous for older family members.
Yeah.
I get that.
Right.
Have y'all gone to like grocery stores and seen things empty?
Ugh.
It's insane.
We're aggressive at the grocery store.
Really?
Yeah, like me and Alexis went at like 3 p.m. on Thursday, and I was thinking that there was going to be like no one there, and like people had 2 carts full of like peanut butter and tuna and pasta, and I was like, I'm just trying to get my normal groceries.
That was in Queens or like in Long Island?
That was in Forest Hills.
Forest Hills? Oh shoot. Yeah.
Everywhere's doing it.
And are you on YouTube? You've been to like grocery store and stuff?
I haven't gone, but my mom went. She's like being an end of the world prepper too. She's stocking up on everything.
Whoa.
It's very embarrassing.
You know, I don't know. It's like I already had. Well, I don't know, like because like you know, a place like BJ's, one of those places. Like I already had a bunch of stuff, but that was from like a long time ago. But I don't know. But like, my mom, like my family lives in Arizona, so they're like, Arizona's losing their shit. Apparently, I don't know. Well, they're already crazy. But anyway, my mom's like sending these messages like, "Go buy lots of toilet paper." I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, everyone's freaking out about toilet paper. I don't get it.
I was like, well,
Like it's a sickness. It's not like a natural disaster. You can get toilet paper.
If the world ends, toilet paper is the least of our concerns. Like, I don't understand what's the obsession with toilet paper.
Yeah, so I don't know. She's like, get a lot of toilet paper, and then my other friend, he's like buying like stocks and stocks of canned chili. Where I'm like, all right, Mexican food. You see, at the very end, it all comes back to us. Well, no, but and then actually, my grocery store. I live in Jackson Heights, in the Indian neighborhood. Those grocery stores are fine. They have like all the stuff in there. So I'm just like, you know, I guess it depends where you go too.
Everybody's saying go to your local Asian markets and stuff because they're still fully stocked.
Like bunch of produce. I was like, all right. There were some things that were missing, but not a lot of stuff, I guess, compared to like I don't know. Actually, and they also sell really big bags of rice. So there you go. Anyway, well, y'all, you know, so at least I'm glad to see you three, and it's kind of cool, I guess, to maybe catch up just a little bit. I did have. I don't know. I got some still hopes for this class. We're going to make it last. Y'all did some really cool projects. I'm actually reading those. I have a graduate class, so I had to do a lot of their stuff yesterday. But you three are here, so maybe I can ask you. Well, first, are you three on Twitter? Do you guys use Twitter? Hey, wait, another student.
No, I don't.
Wait, another student. Hello. Laura, ¿cómo estás? How are you?
Kosi said she's trying to join but can't.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who is?
I had to switch to Google Chrome.
Oh, all right. Give them some advice if y'all can, please, because I can't even figure out what I'm doing right now. Anyway, well, Laura, how are you, buddy?
I'm good.
Doing good? How are you feeling?
I'm A-okay. Just trying to understand what's going on these last few days.
Yeah. Join the crowd, buddy. I don't know. But how's everybody with your family? Doing okay?
Yeah, they're all okay.
Good.
Staying home.
Yeah. We were just talking about like how grocery stores are crazy right now.
Yeah.
But then I also said to bring it back to our class, like cans of chili. That's going to be the way to save us. Canned Mexican food. Watch out. Canned tortillas, all that stuff. Well, anyway, y'all. Well, some more people will show up, but just so I don't waste y'all's time too much. But I'm glad to see some of y'all here. I think somebody else showing up. Oh, hello. What's up, buddy?
Hello.
Hi. Good to see you, man.
Oh, I have to raise the volume on this.
Yo, move that camera down, man. There you go. All right. See you a little bit. What's up, man?
Hello.
How you feeling?
I was trying to figure this out. I was like clicking on it.
How are you feeling? You feeling okay?
Yep.
Good.
Chilling.
All right. Well, yeah. Hello. Well, I was telling everybody we're surviving. That's good for some of us who are here.
I like the guitars in the back.
Oh, there's not much space. That's like that's not because I'm cool. It's because I don't really have much space.
Oh, okay.
But you know what? They are both Alvarez guitars.
Oh, really? Oh, look at that.
I'm having a hard time not saying like bad Mexican words with you guys because I'm like, oh, you guys are cool. Because usually when I talk to my cousins like this, I would end every word with cabron. But I don't want to call you guys cabrones. Kind of funny. Anyway, y'all. So
I hear me cursing. Sometimes I make that.
Y'all deserve to be cursing right now because this is a pretty crappy way to have a semester go. Oh wait, somebody else showed up. I think
it's me, Ben.
Hey, what's up, Ben? How you doing, man?
Okay, I'm listening.
All right, well, it's good to see you. How are you feeling, Ben?
I'm okay. I'm trying to get used to this.
Yeah, well, all of us. How's your family and everybody doing?
They're fine. I actually just woke up, so.
Gangster.
I don't know if anyone can see me or not. I clicked that, but I don't know if you see me.
You guys just want to be. If you guys just want to like kick back in your bed, what can I do? Make yourselves comfortable.
That's what I'm doing.
All right, that's how every class should be, right?
Yeah, right?
I went to go see my best friend in Arizona because my niece had a quinceañera, which is kind of cool. But my best friend, he's got a daughter in pre-K, and they have structured nap time. And I was like, damn, they lie down in the dark and listen to classical music. I'm like, we need more of that. So
We do.
For college students.
do what
Yeah.
do what you got to do, right?
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Well, anyway, guys, I was gonna ask y'all. So one thing is I have this screen with you guys on Google Hangout, but I have another thing that's actually on YouTube, but they can't see you. They can only see me, and they can only hear me talking to you, which is gonna be weird because people are gonna be like, "Who the hell is he talking to?" But later on, I'm gonna put that for the people who couldn't be here. But for those of you who can be here, thanks for coming out and showing up. I try to make it as easy as possible since I know like some professors are trying to use Zoom, which is kind of hard, and like some not doing anything at all. So at least we have a little bit of time together. I don't know what's going to happen for the rest of the semester, to be honest. I'm not sure if St. John's is going to continue or what's going to go on. We definitely have stuff that you all can do like digitally, which is great. And then hopefully I can answer some questions here about that stuff. So one thing is if you all are on Twitter, by the way, there is a taco literacy on Twitter, and you could like use that time right now if you want to take some notes or something. You also have a chat function on the bottom right here that you can send messages to everybody too. So if there's anything you want to write, you can use that as well. What I was going to plan to do is go over a few things about this project that you just did, and the ones that you all did were all pretty awesome. You definitely are sharing them already, or doing really cool work already. One thing I want to ask you all, if it's okay. So I'm on Twitter, and I have maybe like around 5,000 people who follow me. That's not like because I'm cool. It's because mostly because I want to about tacos. But what I'd like to do is share some of your research on Twitter if you're okay. Like tweet, because I can do is like get people to hopefully go look at your work. So especially the assignment too. So if that's okay with you, unless you have any objections, you can like send me a note and be like, I'm not comfortable. Well, what I want to do is hopefully show the work that you're doing. So that way, hopefully, if we don't have enough discussion here, people might like start asking you, like leaving comments that way too. Is that okay with everybody?
My brother showed his face.
No, I mean, it'd be like another way of doing this is like usually I did this with my previous students the semester. Like I had a class called Queens Foodways. Actually, you can check out that website too. It's queensfoodways.org, and it's students that took this class, like this class a year ago. And I think you read a couple of the student essays for the last exam or the last example, right? One was Iris, and I forget what the other student was, but they were about like Peking duck, and the other one was about Baozi or the bows. So there's a whole class where students made websites like y'all, but they did them like about Italian food and like Colombian food. Anyway, so they made websites like you. So I was like, well, maybe this could be a good way to share your work that way and hopefully give you guys an audience too, because when you sign into WordPress, you can also see how many people from around the world have been looking at your website. So people already have, I think, but this way you can get more people to be your readers, I guess. So if you're interested, if you're not interested, rather, I'm gonna say you're probably saying yes, but if you say no, let me know, and that way I would not put you in that as well. Hey, what's up, buddy? Another student.
Hello.
Oh man, how many we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 students. It's pretty good attendance, I guess. Kosi, how are you doing, my friend?
Me?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How's your family and everybody?
I'm sorry.
How's your family and everybody doing?
Pretty good. I'm trying to stay away from my older grandparents in case I'm a little contagious.
Oh, actually, that's kind of true, actually, right? I mean, one thing about, I guess I don't want to say there's anything good about all this stuff, but it's not babies and it's not little kids. It's still bad, but
It's still bad.
No, it's still terrible. But I mean, man, when it's babies, that stuff is bad. Or like little ones, that's bad. And actually, it's like maybe the little ones are the one carrying it too. But anyway, I don't know. Anyway, y'all. Well,
my laptop is already heating up.
Dude, oh no.
Oh man.
Cool it down. Hey, if you gotta take a break and come back, don't worry. I hope mine's okay too. Everybody, well, let me go through some stuff. Let me go. Let me go through some stuff really quick then about the class. So then, hopefully, if we don't run on too long, and that way, if you want to hang out longer, you got to go. Don't worry about it. So one thing is I gave you all this Google Doc that has some announcements on it. So I'll just go to that and you can follow along with me. I see there's a lot of people here already. So what I'll do is I'll have this doc and I'll have the first part that'll be the announcements. And as you'll see, we're trying to figure out how we're going to do this, but I do ask you to all do a couple things about going to Instagram and leaving a couple comments on your classmates. So yeah, that means going and using the hashtag, and hopefully this will be one way you guys can be in contact with each other back and forth. And hopefully, I don't know, I mean, it's up to you guys at that point. Like, if people are around each other and feel like meeting up, y'all can do that. My understanding from St. John's, from my boss, the dean, was like, by no means do not take your class to go get tacos. So I'm sorry. Like, damn, that's the only good thing that was going to come out of this. But I cannot stop you from getting tacos together, or maybe even like, I don't know, sharing the tacos that you have online. Next best thing we can do. But anyway, hopefully that if you guys have this back and forth, it might be that those comments might ask you questions that you can use for your next project, which I'm going to talk about in a second. All right, so that would mean I'm going to ask you to try to do, like, you know, about 20 comments for the rest of the semester. But in other words, going through Instagram and also just messing around with comments when you're not putting up any kind of material. So related to this, you got another set of 15 Instagram posts coming up. And I'm going to ask you if of those 15, that you would make 5 of those be some kind of video. And I'll leave that up to you how you're going to do that. Some people have been doing videos already of like making food. I think one of the high school students, I believe, found a commercial that somehow she was able to upload as a video, which was pretty cool. So that way, if you have a mixture of photographs and also some kind of video, it could be like a selfie video or something like that. That's fine too. But the same thing. If you have any of also another way to think about this is tagging any of your classmates too. Maybe somebody that asked you a question, or like, for example, I think Cecilia's been doing a lot of making tortillas. And if you started to make your own tortillas and you wanted to show her yours, then you can do that tomorrow. I'm giving a lecture for the new school. It was supposed to be at the new school, but they're going to be doing it digitally. So I'll count that as class for Monday next week. So you don't have to actually be there. You can be there on time live, or you can check it out. But it's actually going to be a lecture that talks about teaching this class. And then I'll mention like some of the history behind this class if you want to know like how I was able to finagle universities to teach a class about tacos. It's kind of a funny story. All right. Now, this last part, I hope it happens, but y'all, I have no idea. So the folks at Bon Appetit were going to let us go and like check out the test kitchen. I mentioned to people who came to the class last week. It turns out, if it does happen, it'll be on May 5th because the editor's like, it's Cinco de Mayo. And she's like, why don't you guys just come on Cinco de Mayo? I'm like, damn it, you're right. So, but to be honest, y'all, they're also like they're doing their work all digitally. I hope everything will be good. Maybe by then, that would be nice if it happens, but that's the May 5th, if it does happen, will be the time we hope to make it happen. But I cannot guarantee anything at this time. I'm sorry. I don't even know about like y'all's graduation and stuff like that, to be honest. So it's pretty shitty. There's nothing, I've never seen anything like this. This is really weird. It's really weird. Sorry. So sorry for throwing all that stuff out there, but let me take a break here and y'all can say like, any questions you have, or I don't know, if you just want to talk about this weird shit going on, how you're holding up, that's cool too.
I just like the memes.
Oh,
Just watching them, looking at the memes.
I mean, hey, you know what? If y'all put memes, if you all want to use like GIFs for some of your videos, that's pretty cool too. If you find some good memes or something or you make some. The world needs more taco memes always. I was trying to figure out how to do TikTok. Man, TikTok is dangerous, y'all. TikTok, you can be watching that thing for like an hour. I'm like, oh my god. So, but anyway, so was that stuff kind of clear about like the Instagram ways that y'all just basically try to use more Instagram for class? If you want, oh man, you know those high school students too, like their class got canceled too. So like they're kind of upset because some of the students they really like hanging out with you guys. So I'm trying to figure out like how to get Instagram to get hopefully you can get in contact with them too that way. So I think I'm gonna have them do some more like go live kind of stuff, but we'll see. It'll be kind of funny. So let me see, y'all. Okay, this Google Doc. One more thing. I got a next page of the guy spinning on his taco head. So I got a couple parts that I pointed out from the Planet Taco. Where is it? There it is. Here's my version, Planet Taco. We got to come to an end. On the syllabus, we're supposed to do another book, Eating NAFTA. Do you all have that book?
I think so.
You think so? I don't know.
What book?
It's called Eating NAFTA. Let me see. I might got it right here. Hold on. Let me look. Follow me. Just hold on. There it is. This one right here. Got a picture of tortillas, chips. Something looks like this.
I
Does
don't
anybody
know.
have this one?
Is that one? Is that the book that was supposed to come out later?
No, that one is actually good question. So I don't know about that book because it was supposed to only be at the
I don't
bookstore, I
know
believe.
how you were funded that because it was through the store.
That's
And
the
now since
problem.
we can't go to campus, I don't know what's gonna happen.
That's what I'm figuring out. It might be the problem with that book, unfortunately. That's the one called American Tacos.
Oh, that's
But
the one.
this one y'all should have probably had already if you didn't get it. This looks
I probably
familiar.
do have it. It's fine.
So this one then may, in fact, be the last book we read. She's the professor at the new school. That's going to be at that lecture I give. So she's like also New Yorker. She's brilliant, brilliant, brilliant scholar. And we might be able to end with that one. I think we still though maybe do something like this, like where we have the video call, and I'll get the author Jose of that book because he was supposed to Skype in the class, and he'll give a little lecture with us. And I'm going to see if they'll be able to get us a digital copy. I think they might be understanding, and in which case, hopefully they'll give it to us for free. So I'm gonna work on that one, and then anyway, hopefully we can still get him to talk to us. So if anything, I don't know if I can get a digital version of this one though. So if you don't have it, you can still tune in, and we'll there's some podcasts and stuff that features her work and stuff online, so then I can supplement it that way too. So I want to put that out there just in case. So all right, y'all. Well, on that note, let me get back to Planet Taco if I could. Sorry for all the random movement here. So on Planet Taco, I had a few notes there, kind of some big quotes I pulled out. And if you're all in that document, we can go to that document. And maybe we can do this way, and y'all can do this together with me. And we can point out some of the key terms that I think are really emblematic of what we saw in Ano, but really put together in a kind of historical kind of context that's going to give us a lot of tools to think about what foodways are, at least for Mexican foodways in the U.S. So the first quote is from the preface, page Roman numeral 15. And this is where this guy Pilcher is really trying to tell us the goal of his book. Any kind of preface for any of these academic books, like this book, which you notice it's academic because it has so many footnotes and so many notes in the back and also a works cited. The preface is usually, here is why I'm writing this book, and here is the thesis of my book. So, as he mentions, the book tells the story of a particular idea of authentic Mexican food was invented by the global marketplace, by the promoters of culinary tourism in order to compete against industrial foods from the United States. So I highlighted that there. And what I'd like you to do, everybody, kind of join in and see if you can give a couple comments. You know, you have a little comment function on the right to try to break down what he means by especially the idea of authentic food invented by a global marketplace by promoters of culinary tourism. So I'll just give you all a second if you would and try to see if you can break that down a little bit, because that word authentic, that was a question many of you were speaking about before about having authentic Mexican food. And this might be a way to really break down how authentic is an invention. So I'll let you have at that for a second and then we'll regroup. So go for it, folks, if you would. See what you think.
Where's that quote?
So this is on the Google Doc. The top that says taco literacy in times of a pandemic. Scroll down to the second page behind the little guy spinning on his head. And then it says Planet Taco Notes. I just highlighted it a second ago. So just this part right here. We just want to check out this. And we're taking it kind of slow here. Let me give a little highlight to that even. That right there. Let's do some close reading. The particular idea of authentic Mexican food was invented in the global marketplace by promoters of culinary tourism to compete against industrial foods from the United States. We're going to come down to this part in a second, but let's just break down some of these key terms here, because I think if we figure out what he's getting at here, I think it's going to point out a lot of stuff that we already saw happening in Arellano. And I hope y'all's computers are not catching fire.
Mine is slowly catching fire, but it's okay. Trying to like
I better close out my email.
ventilate it.
Oh boy. As y'all doing this, I'm just saying, it's good to see you all. It would be nice if we had our little table, but hey, it's probably germ infested now. And I'm going to join you on that dock. All right.
Oh, there we go.
That's me. I threw down a comment. All I do is give comments. That's my whole job. Hmm. Hmm. Like I'm giving comments on my comments. Does everybody find that place I was looking at here? So I'll just go back up. It's sent you all a link. Actually, you know what I can do? Why don't I do this? Here is the link to the doc. What am I doing? There it is. One more time. Click on that. Learning. If you click on that, you go to a Paco literacy in times of pandemic. But we try to be humorous still. And there's announcements on the first page, and you scroll down to the second. There is a taco man spinning on his head. And then there's some Planet Taco notes, and I'll make this just a little bit bigger too. And this is actually, if you remember way back when we were doing the pie paragraphs together, or quote tamales, it's the same document we were using in class. And where it says Planet Taco notes, it's the very beginning where it says from the preface. It's a quote I highlighted. And I just wanted y'all to take a look at that, maybe give a couple of thoughts. You can type them here if you want to, or you can type them on the document. It's up to you. You all see where I was looking at? Okay. Cool. The second part we'll get to in just a minute, but I just want to get through maybe a couple words, like what the hell is culinary tourism, especially. This one seems very important. And then there we go. Are you guys able to leave comments?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you could just hit the little, there's like a little plus guy on, like if you basically highlight a word or something and you hit the little plus, that'll show up on the side. This is like for when all of you are like teachers someday, and your students have to write essays, then you got to give them comments that they just accept changes anyway, you know. There we go. Nice. Cool. So as you're all taking some notes, I don't know. when you think about like authentic food, I think before, hopefully, the semester you were thinking one thing, and then now that you might be questioning what you think of as authentic. Sometimes I think we had the question like, oh, is Taco Bell authentic? But then I think we had some interesting discussions about that, about what it means, or I guess how it feels to be authentic. So let me give you just a second to do that. Um, you might also think about how this part that the industrial and the invention are important, but also what it means to think about global marketplace and promoters, promoters of culinary tourism. So culinary tourism is one thing, promoters of culinary tourism is another. And you definitely know how it works. If you, let's say you have a, I don't know, a friend who is a promoter who works in the entertainment industry, and what the job of a promoter is, and then what it means to promote tourism for food. So there's a lot of I don't know, kinds of relationships you can start to think about, and how that relates to a marketplace, because a marketplace is also setting up a kind of economic exchange. So kind of pushing you maybe to start thinking about how the thing about authentic is a money maker, or how authenticity can be a way to make money. Anyway, all right. So I got some comments up here. Let's check out what Loudest has to say. Loudest, maybe you can break it down for us. What are you thinking here?
I think it's interesting that he said invented authentic.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's such a fabricated way to get people to visit different restaurants that maybe aesthetically look
Okay.
authentic, but are not really authentic in like their true nature.
Whoa. Wait, break that mean. What do you mean by aesthetically authentic? What makes a place aesthetically Mexican, for example? Well, I think you're onto
I
something.
feel like a few people would want to put like Mexican artifacts or pictures, trying to like hone into a culture that's not their own, just to attract tourism to an area.
Like, what kind of artifacts do you mean? Like, what? Give me some examples.
Like I've been to a few Mexican restaurants where they have like ponchos or pictures of chilies or like
Hmm.
margarita cups or pinatas, and it's kind of like capitalizing on a culture that they don't understand just to bring in people.
Yeah. Hold on. So, like, so they have to. In other words, like the intentional design is to make authenticity, and then it has.
Yes.
Yeah. So, like, it's kind of like. Well, hold on. So, like a sombrero, you said, for example,
Hmm.
and then you said a piñata. What are some other markers like? Oh, this place is Mexican, as opposed to like I don't know some other background. What do y'all think? I think you're onto something. Sure. Anybody else? Think about like the different places you've gone now for this class, because y'all have gone to like different kind of restaurants now, right? And sometimes taco trucks. What's some of the typical markers inside for decorations? What's one decoration that they seem to all have in common, or is there any that they don't all have in common?
I noticed there's a lot of similarities in like the colors of the restaurant.
There you
Like,
go. What are those colors?
green, red, yellow,
Mm.
and even like within the food, those are like primary colors.
Oh, touche. Hold on. Break that down a little. Like red and green. All right. Anybody else? Like, why would red and green be important?
It's on the flag.
It's on the flag. All right. It's also the chilies, red and green. But also, this a lot of this stuff that this guy Pilcher is talking about is how Mexican food was actually used as nationalism. I got to kind of break that part down a little bit, because, like, you know how, well, right now, the United States is spoken of in terms of nationalism. It's not just this country, by the way. It's a lot of like these very far right wing governments all over around the world. Like in Brazil, there's this guy Bolsonaro, kind of similar. Right now, England, they're doing this thing, the Brexit, very far right wing governments, even like in Saudi Arabia, China, the Middle East, and Iran, Saudi, like why he says Saudi Arabia, Turkey. Anyway, these projects of nationalism mean they have to sort of like say, in this case, America first is what we say in this country, or some of us say in this country, America first, right? Which means like get rid of any kind of global connections and just for America. So this kind of way of thinking is not new. It goes back because they have to build nations. So in Mexico, there was a period of Mexico first, and it was those Creoles. Remember the Creoles I mentioned before in class? Like George Washington is a Creole too. It's like basically the upper class of the Europeans who want to usurp political control of a state. So anyway, one way they try to train their population is by, in the case of Mexico, they use a lot of films. It's when the first films came out. They also, when the creation of mariachi, because mariachi was a creation by the state as well. Also, the Mexican vaquero. There's a lot of early Mexican cinema that was sponsored by the state. So whenever you watch like sometimes foreign films, you know now we have the intro with the credits. Films from Canada, films from Latin America, they will also show sponsorship of the different nations that they receive funding from. Well, anyway, long story. So it was even with the food. So it was like, if we can make the food patriotic, this is our food. So, Kosi, you're exactly right. The colors, red and green, it's in the color of the food because the food was a way to make a Mexican nation. What makes Mexico separate from all Latin America? Their idea was our food and our history. So yeah, the colors, absolutely. And you'll notice any restaurant you go, there's probably going to be red and green and probably going to be really bright too, but other colors too, right? A lot of time, like really bright oranges, really bright yellows, but also because the food is kind of bright too, right? So interesting, good. What are some other things? Y'all notice like Virgin of Guadalupe everywhere or anywhere? Man, not everywhere because maybe like some restaurants, they might not want to have that prominent, but usually the bigger the Virgin Guadalupe, probably the bigger food. Taco literacy math, everybody. But give me some other things. So you got like costumes, like the sombrero. All right, what else? What about like photographs? Anything like that? Art on the walls?
Stuff in a lot of places.
Any picture like Aztecs? All right. What about like pictures of mariachis? Maybe. Well, the reason why I say this then, and it's actually everything Laura said. She hit it up, like you hit it perfect, my friend. Is that there becomes a kind of decor that becomes part of something that's marketable, and it's not so much because they want to represent Mexican culture, but they're trying to sell Mexican culture. And part of the selling of the food means you have to go into the place to recognize that this is the place where they sell Mexican food. Although sometimes it may not necessarily be culturally aware of how they're doing things. And you can see this typically when it's going to be stuff that deals with like putting on a costume or things that seem, well, you can kind of tell like they're just making it like Disneyland, if that makes sense. So anyway, let me go back to some of these comments here. Also, I think one thing you put, Laura, is that it's constructed and fabricated. So that's a really important point. Constructed and fabricated also has a lot to do with like, well, like a factory model for sure. All right, hold on. Let me keep going here. Good stuff. Ariana, break it down what you said, my friend.
Well, I was saying like for them to be wanting to focus more on these authentic places, you know, like more of the mom and pop shops. Obviously, like that's ideal because you want those people to be supported. Like it's their actual food rather than larger corporations or people who don't have that ethnic background. Yeah. But at the same time, it's still a capitalist kind of thing. It's still about making money. They're still trying to compete with the U.S. food industry. So yeah, there's two sides to it.
So Ariana, what do you think about that competition? Is it like fair? One side have more power than the other? How does that play out?
I mean, I think that the industries already do have more power. So I rather people make money off of it going to some place that deserves it, if that makes sense. Okay, sure. Rather than a big corporation. Yeah. Hold on. There's some things here. So hold on. So let me ask you like about a promoter. So like what is a promoter? That sounds very odd. I don't really know what they mean by that. I don't know. What do y'all think about that? Like, let's maybe put it into a different context. Like, let's say like somebody owns a club, right? And they hire a promoter. Like, what is the job of the promoter to do?
Like something like reach out to a bunch of their friends, they can get their friends, like ask them to come and say like, oh, you're not gonna have to pay at the door or whatever. And like I know that like one of my friends brought me to a like bar opening this summer because her friend was a promoter, and like he gave us like free alcohol, and like we were like let into the bar and stuff for free and stuff. I don't know.
So was it like did you have to spend any money at all, or was it like a deal to get it?
No, we spent no money.
Oh man, you guys need more friends who are promoters, y'all. You see how this works out? Oh my, so
It's just like you want people, as many people to go and have a good time as possible, so they tell their friends about it.
yeah. And then,
No.
well, hold on. So here's the other question: did you go back afterwards?
No.
You haven't gone back. Oh man, so this was not a success, I think, for this
Yeah,
promoter.
it was. Don't even remember.
Well, let's put it this way. So a club hires a promoter to bring people there for just one time to give free alcohol. Does that sound like a good deal for the club owner? Like,
No, but I think that's the idea. Is like people will go back.
yeah, I think also, right? But in general, it might be like the person who does the advertising campaign. It's also the person who might arrange like to have security there. It's also the person who might like be able to arrange talent, you might say, to bring like people to the club or like musicians. It's kind of like the person who does all the work of like an agent would do, if that makes sense. So that means like they might also be the ones who subcontract someone to run the social media, who does like, the promotions you would see like that are like posters. You might see them like on campus, no doubt about it. I'm sure there are several promoters who might be people you know. Usually they're hired as the contract basis to be the person who's going to be like organizes all the infrastructure to make everything increase business for the club owner. So the club owner doesn't know about the business of like getting people there. So it might have been like, well, that's an investment you make. Hopefully you have a time where a lot of people come, in this case, and then come back, or you like, schedule certain nights that like promoted for whatever business for the club. So the reason why I'm saying this is now bring it back to this kind of promoter, because this kind of promoter does the same job, but they're promoters of tourism. This is a little bit different though, because promoters of tourism, meaning they're not promoting a club, they might be promoting, let's say, a restaurant in a particular other part of the world, meaning you got to come to this restaurant in this part of the world and you can eat really good over there. Not only that, but like we'll include a resort, we'll include a way for you to go to the local village and be able to eat at their table of an open fire. You don't have to live there, you don't have to sleep there, because later on you're going to go back to the resort. Everything is included for this price. And you can start to see like how the promoter definitely is thinking like, exploitation, but also in the case of like, here are real people who are not tourists. And because when anytime you think about tourists, there's already power dynamics in play. Only certain people in the class of the world can be tourists, and other people are going to be objects for tourism. Does that make sense? Put it this way. It might be the case that, that place La Morada, that restaurant we looked at before, where people are undocumented, and on the walls it says undocumented, unafraid. That's in the South Bronx. I don't know how often you all go to the South Bronx. It's not that bad. Sometimes it gets painted in like ways that's very dangerous place. There are a lot of people who would never live in the South Bronx, but they'll go to that restaurant. You see what I'm saying? That's a kind of culinary tourism too, meaning I will go there in that neighborhood. I won't study it. I don't even know anything about it. I'll have the food. I'll take my picture and I'm out. So like one of these things with this class that you're doing is like, for example, the Quatcinco place that so many of you are a fan of. You read about it and there's communities there. Like those people don't leave. They have lives. And you go and visit. That's different than being a tourist. Tourist means like I'm in and I'm out. That's more of like, well, you go there and you begin to know, they begin to know you, number one, but you begin to know that community too. And you recognize that there's dignity of the people who live there, and they're not just there to be like, I don't know, to be looked at, because, they're human beings too, right? So anyway, back to this quote. One of the things that he's saying is that there was this global market invention of culinary tourism. That's what Mexico was doing. When I say this is where it gets more complicated, because it sounds like, wow, that's terrible that Americans would go make this market. No, no, no. This was Mexicans, rich Mexicans, and the Mexican tourist industry. What's kind of crazy, y'all? I don't think you can do this here at St. John's, but in Mexico, one of the most popular majors for college students is tourism. If you major in tourism and how to like start your own resort and all this kind of stuff, how to start your own bus company, like that does tours, that's what people study in Mexico. It's happened somewhat here in the United States too, like states like Alaska, I think they offer it. Probably states like Wyoming, some of those states. But to imagine like I want to study tourism, that also means like here's how I'm going to make money by bringing rich Americans, Germans, Europeans. They want to go to Yucatan, Mexico. I will arrange for a bus to go to a cenote, which is an underwater canyon in an indigenous village. They will get off, they will go swim, we'll arrange lunch, and they go back. And you can make a very lucrative living, for sure. Some of y'all have been to those resorts, right? Like Cancun, like Playa del Carmen, Baja California. They're pretty nice. They're just not really made for Mexican people. It's more for the tourism industry. Oh no. What happened? Somebody came back. Is everybody still there? All right, y'all. So, that's Anthony. Sorry, man. So, all right, everybody. So, I just wanted to break that one down a little bit. I think you all guys got some big points here. Let me do one more here just before I take up too much of your time. So, everybody, I think what you start to see with this part about globalization, there is a globalization of Mexican food that really kind of happens as the Taco Bell being the standard. So think about like standard English. You probably heard this before. It's like the one that your teachers make you force you to speak, like good grammar or whatever. The Taco Bell hard shell taco becomes the world standard of what is Mexican food. You can imagine how that makes Mexican people feel, right? When they travel to Germany or something, the German's like, "Oh, I know your food so well," and they're presented with the hard shell taco. They're like, "Oh, it's like stabbing my heart." So, with that, it's an interesting question because in the same way that Taco Bell becomes an ambassador for Mexican food in the United States, Taco Bell also becomes an ambassador for Mexico or Mexican food across the world. And that might be on a larger scale what we saw happening in the history here that happens in different places. So actually, let me keep going with some comments. Alexis, break it down what you got, my friend. What were you thinking?
So pretty much I just wrote about how he said it's a particular idea of authentic. That kind of makes it seem like it's not really a particular idea at all. Like authenticity can be subjective, but people really, really want to make sure that they're doing what's authentic just because, I don't know, like it sounds bad if you're doing something inauthentic.
Ooh.
So even though they're calling these things authentic and there's not like one definition necessarily of what authentic is, because these like businesses or like restaurant owners are calling it authentic, people like flock there because they want to make sure that they're doing what's authentic, what they think is authentic.
Wow, that's great. No, I like that. I think you're right. You don't want you wouldn't go to a place that said inauthentic Mexican food. Like, what the hell? But you're right. Yeah, it's true. And I think maybe even using the word authentic is like a decoration, like in the same way, like having the stuff on the wall. That's a good point. Oh, what do y'all think about that?
I definitely agree. Like, I was also looking at that same like part where they what that quote says, a particular idea of authentic Mexican food.
Yeah.
And that word "particular" is very just like, I don't know how to describe that word, but it's it's just like it doesn't seem like it's completely authentic. It just means to say that it's just a little bit, or it's just some version of an authentic Mexican food, like
absolutely
experience.
Yeah.
So that was just something that caught my eye with like just that language that was used to describe authentic Mexican food. You and
Alexis, I think, are on the same wavelength there because I'm gonna put that one on pause for a second because I think you both are onto something here. Sarah, what about you, my friend? What are you mentioning here?
I was this kind of made me think about, because I did my assignment too on tamales.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I was like doing my research, I realized like how there's so many different versions of tamales, and I was thinking how like authenticity also can depend on where you are in the world. Like someone who's from like Guatemala would think the authentic tamale is really different than someone who's from Mexico. So I was kind of thinking how at the same time, like if you're in America, eating Mexican, or even like in some of the videos we watched, the chef said like how when they started cooking in Mexico, the ingredients they had were so much better and fresher, and like so it's different. So I kind of think about how like it is like authenticity is so subjective, and obviously like Taco Bell is like way less authentic than like probably a taqueria that we go to and get food cooked by like people who like Mexican food was like passed down in recipes and their family and stuff. But I think that it also like has to do with where you are in the world too. So
Yeah.
it's I don't know, like it's going to be like very adaptive no matter where you are as well.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's something like Alexis was saying too. Like it was subjective, but it's also like what you're saying is geographical. That's a big point, actually. But geographical means that it has there might be connections of geographies across the world because of immigrants. And the immigrants might also, let's say, be the connecting of geographies across nations. But then also, if we're talking about globalization, that also has to do with connecting places and making them closer. You can see it right now because of the way this virus has been spreading. It's been spreading all over the world. And maybe begins in one place, but then it travels all over the world, which means we're all connected, at least biologically. But then there's also like trade and economic relationships and stuff too. Ben, you had a question, buddy, that said about globalization. You still there, buddy?
Oh, no, I was just asking a general question, I guess.
Well, what do you think, man? What is globalization for you?
I guess like basically spreading food and ideals on
Well, put it this way, everybody. I think what you all are pointing out are some big points, and you'll see like we're kind of stepping back from just talk of like whether tacos are yummy or not, right? The particular idea of authentic. This is it. Now we got to break that down. What does he mean by that? A particular idea. This is the thing they're trying to sell. What is the particular idea, and who makes that idea? Who invents it? You can type it in or you throw it out there. Any thoughts? Ariana, what do you think? Who's the one who invents this particular? What is the particular idea? First off, what is the idea of Mexican they're trying to sell?
I don't know. Like that's so hard to say. Like I know we always say like, "Oh, this authentic place," but like, yeah, what does that really mean? I don't know.
It's a particular idea.
Money put across that idea of what authentic is.
Definitely, it's all about the money. Y'all got that part. That part is definitely sure. But also, a particular idea means that's not taking all of authentic. It means that like we have to make an idea that somehow something is authentic. This part gets really tricky because, well, it's sort of like the idea that you're selling. One is that like the food is somehow more closely related to the people. But then the problem is like, well, people want authentic Mexican food, but they don't want to like be around Mexicans. So this is the way where you can go, let's say, for example, to, I don't know, let's say a part of the country. Imagine there are a lot of places in the country where there's still not a lot of Mexican people. Or like, like places like Taqueria Coatzinco, they don't exist. Breaks my heart to think about such a place. But there are communities in this world, in this country, where there are not taquerias like that, where they're not like slicing al pastor. Instead, all they got is like, maybe one Mexican restaurant. Let's call it Tex-Mex, shall we? Right? When those people, let's say, go to that kind of restaurant, sometimes they don't know like there's immigrant restaurants and then there's like big chain restaurants. And the chains all look kind of the same, right? Like you go to Kmart in Alabama and you go to Kmart in New York, the Kmart more or less looks the same, right? Or like Target or something like that. All right. So these idea of authentic Mexican food, this one largely becomes the way that like Taco Bell and different places create a taco standard, whatever that is. So in other words, the quote unquote authentic in this way, how people misrecognize authentic for the mass-produced one or the industrial one, because that's the one that has all the money. Look, compare the website of Taco Bell that we saw with some of those mom and pop websites that didn't even have a website. Taco Bell has a whole army of promotion and just basically money to invest to be able to create a kind of image. And then that becomes the mass-produced one around the world. So let me bring it back then, because we still got a little bit of time, y'all, while we can talk a little bit more about Planet Taco. That quote just below, that's highlighted, I also mentioned here, there is a struggle. And the struggle, whenever you see struggle mentioned in any kind of like, sort of social theory, like class struggle and stuff like that, there is a struggle in this case between industrial Tex-Mex foods and then there's Mexican peasant cuisine. And that is quite the struggle. because what we're going to start see in this book, especially, and I think less so in Ariano's book, but about what it means to be indigenous in the Americas. And on the one hand, when Mexico is telling itself how great it is, like Kosi was saying, like the red and the green and the food, and they're so proud of their Mexican flag. It's more like Mexico first, in the same way like a lot of people are right now. It was also when Mexico had its dictator for about 35 years. He was a general. His name was Porfirio Diaz. So he was a military strongman who wanted everyone to be very proud of the nation. It happens a lot. Anyway, so while they're doing this, the food became very important, but also they had the idea that we need to celebrate our Aztec past. That was the idea, that we were a part of a glorious civilization of the Aztec past. In the meantime, the people living who were indigenous in the present were treated like garbage. Many of them executed. So, in one hand, they were like, here is our glorious forefathers, like we do here. And in the meantime, like they were doing a lot of bad stuff without really mentioning it. So, with this, you start to see like how they talk about Mexican peasant food. That food has always been exploited, and from Mexican people, but also in the United States too. Because what's interesting is Mexican peasants in the United States are like folks like me, Mexican immigrants. Not always indigenous, maybe more mixed, but considered of that class of like farm workers and also people who do that kind of work. And the same way, authentic meant poor people's food. And how rich people can have the experience of eating poor people's food removed from the poor people. So you don't have what the poor people eat, but poor people wear a costume. Can you imagine that? Poor people wear a costume. They dress poor. They wear blankets and they wear these big hats. That's the authentic or costume of being poor, right? So what we'll do is we'll serve Mexican poor people food. There won't be any poor people. We'll just take their hats and hang them on the wall. So that way you can be like, oh, it's like a real Mexican was here because that's what they wear. But thank God there are no real Mexicans because otherwise I wouldn't show up. You see how this thing kind of works out? So authenticity means literally appropriation and also taking something away from the people. So the same thing happened in Mexico with the indigenous people. We want your food, we just don't want you, right? And then when poor people migrate to the United States, we want your food, but we don't want you. We want your chili, but we'll put it in a can, authentic chili, without the Mexican, right? In the meantime, the chili queens, will shut them down because we can do their business better than them anyway, too. And plus, if you eat Mexican food, well, if they're dirty people, then the food must be dirty, too. Does that make sense? It's a pretty shitty game, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Because that's industrialization. Industrialization, like y'all just said, it's about basically profits over people. Profits over people. I guess that's probably the easiest way to say that. And then what does it mean if we have a global marketplace and it's profits before people? What does that mean for the poor people and other parts of the world where rich people can like profit off those other people's experience? Meaning I can go to a resort in Indonesia and stay on the resort and never have to associate with Indonesian people and still say I went to Indonesia or something like that and then be able to come back. What do y'all think about that?
It's very segregating.
Well, break it down. What do you mean? Segregating in what way?
Well, I mean, when you say like in that context with like the resorts and stuff, I mean, you're having the experience that you're in Mexico. Let's just say if you went to like Cancun or something. But if you didn't go to Mexico City, then are you really in like you're in a place where it's like they make it look pretty and they're like, wow, Mexico is beautiful, or Mexico is beautiful. Sure. But you're also just being removed from the actual people themselves. Maybe there'll be Mexican workers on the resort because they have to work, but it's still not the same because it's very because with resorts they're very planned and they're very just like they're very organized on where everything is placed so that they make sure that you have the best experience wherever you are.
Absolutely.
But and then you're not going into the country, like you're just staying on that part of the country. It feels like it's very just like segregating and separating yourself from the rest of the people.
Yeah. Well, actually, as you say that, it reminds me of people who come visit New York, and they'll like, they're not going to come out to where St. John's is unless they pass by. They might stay like in certain parts of the city that are like safe or
Yeah.
like manicured that look really nice. In the meantime, places like East New York exist, and that's part of New York. Last time I checked, Staten Island too.
Yeah.
But people will like basically take the ferry and go back around, so they don't have to like really hang out over there. God bless Staten Island, by the way. But what do y'all say about that? Keep on going. I think you're on to something about the segregated part is interesting. Segregated by maybe by class and race and other ways.
I think I noticed that a lot. Like I took a school trip to Costa Rica when I was in high school. We like this first trip, and I remember because like it was partly just like a cultural trip where we were going and doing all like the touristy things of Costa Rica, but we were also volunteering at the school, like elementary schools and stuff. And I remember noticing such a stark difference between like the tourist experiences we were having, and then we were in the little Costa Rican village visiting the schools, like the actual like lives of the people who were living in Costa Rica were so drastically different than like the Costa Rica I was experiencing.
Yeah, you're right. Well, put it this way. There is a whole industry of student travel. So you probably noticed there might have been a company involved or a partnership with the school. So like part of that is also kind of similar. Food is probably involved in some way. Like you have a host meal family, and you're right. I mean, it's problematic, but it's also we have to understand. Like, well, it's maybe not so much problematic, but it has a profit side to it, and sometimes it might be hard to overlook it. But in the meantime, in some ways, like some other folks would argue, well, if we didn't have the tourists, then some of those economies would be like not existent at all. But it's a good point. You're right. I think you're onto something. Other thoughts, y'all? Thinking about this industry. Well, actually, let me put that on pause for a second because I have so many notes there, and I want to kind of just run through them really quick, and hopefully we can do this. Actually, well, before I do that, how do y'all feel about meeting again on Thursday? Is that okay? Like this kind of meeting with class, or not okay with you? Seems like it works. Okay, well, I'll be back. You don't got to be here. You can too. If you want to be like Ben, kind of kick back on your bed, sleep and listen. Fine too. Whatever you got to do. If you want to be having tacos while we're meeting, that's cool too. Whatever. Cheerios. Whatever you got to do. I'm happy you're all here. I want to scroll down. I have some notes here. A couple things on the next page, which is after the guy spitting. There's another quote that comes from chapter 1, and it talks about Mexican food and corn and pre-Hispanic stuff. I'm going to skip that just a little bit. Chapter 3 actually gives us a little bit about the history of burritos and stuff. A little bit more about the borderlands. I'm going to go through that one just in a second here, but just make note that the flour tortilla becomes this like very important symbol for Mexican food, especially in the United States. And I just want to scroll through just a little bit. There's another page. I'm going to have to number these pages here. I'll do that in a second. Let me see. Page numbers at the top of the page. There we go. This is on page 5, everybody. It says assignment 3. There's like a little baby reading a book. Kind of freaking out. Page 5 of the Google Doc, everybody. Sorry about that. No, sorry. I meant at the Google Doc. I'm sorry. I'm taking a little side turn here while we still have a little bit of time, so maybe we can do some of this stuff together. Well, as you do this, so it's on page 5 of the Google Doc, which I'll send this to you one more time. There it is. And if you scroll down to the 5th page, there it says assignment 3, looking ahead, getting your taco research game going. Baby reading very fast. That's you studying for finals or something. Anyway, so I have a couple notes here, and I'm going to actually share this with everybody else who couldn't be here, but hopefully give you some ideas about how to do a little bit of research. How are you all about using the databases in the library? Have you been doing that for your other classes? You're like, yeah.
Yeah.
First year writing, we did that, I remember, kind of. So, well, I have a couple of places for y'all to start. Actually, if you would pull up another tab on your computer, hopefully your computer doesn't break down. One is Google Scholar, so scholar.google.com. livestream.google.com. I'll give you the link here. Probably already used this. If you don't, I think I mentioned it in class. Definitely pull that dude up. And while you're there, this is a link to the university library databases, which I'm going to give you next. The campus guides, it says. And if you go to, well, Google Scholar, I believe, let me see if I can take a screenshot of this. Share screen. Something like, oh, maybe it's not going to work. Sorry, never mind. I guess I can't do that. So basically, your Google Scholar that pops up, it looks just like a Google search, except it says Scholar next to it. So this is usually a pretty good place to start. And there, I think it might be kind of cool that if you, try a couple search terms. So I typed in tacos, and if you type in tacos, so all I did was type in tacos for Google search, you're going to notice, you get about 55,000 results, I believe. And, well, not all of them are very useful. As you go through, you're like, well, there's some stuff here for like a tacos study. I don't think that's the kind of tacos we're looking for. There is also the second one that I have, mold for frying tacos wrappers. That's actually a US patent from 1954. So, might be interesting to look at. But on the left-hand side, notice you have other things to include patents and citations. All right, well, if you want to look up the taco fryer because you wanted to do research, you can research patents. I think you saw that happen in some of the books, right? They actually showed some of the models and things. So Google Scholar, though, if you change your search terms, here's where things can get kind of interesting. So I believe some folks were writing, I think Joseph, but he's not here, wrote about the mission burrito for his research project. So if you type in mission burrito, I'm going to say mission burrito history. You're going to find all kinds of interesting stuff that describes Mexican food. And, well, some of them might be more useful than others, right? But what I wanted you to do is do something a little bit more interesting, because now that y'all are getting into being like scholars, now we got to start asking some really interesting questions, because it should be thinking about like tacos and maybe tacos plus appropriation, or tacos and racism, tacos and immigration. So in other words, including some kind of social category related to what you're studying. It could also be, for example, Mexican food bilingualism, Mexican food trade, or for example, something could even be like related to corn, genetically modified corn. So in other words, I'm trying to get you to think about like food in relation to some kind of social category or topic. Another way of thinking about this, it could be Mexican food, gender, and you'll start to see divisions that happen between men and women, for example, right? Mexican food, racism, and all kinds of stuff is going to pop up, right? Mexican food, social class. So usually the best way I can give you as a hint is the three things that kind of narrow down your terms is if you use gender, social class, or race. That's really reductive, but like when kind of research, that's kind of like a social way of thinking of research. And sometimes using literary theory, you probably had to take a literary theory class. Maybe took Professor So's class, right? She's pretty badass. She's pretty cool. So another way thinking about that, how could you apply psychoanalysis to Mexican food? How could you apply the idea of Marx's social struggle, the class struggle, to Mexican food? Does that make sense? So it's trying to like take what you know already and then try to bring a critical lens to it. So for this assignment, I mentioned starting off with Google Scholar, you might find something pretty cool. But if you did like Mexican burrito or mission burrito and you did gender, you're going to get like, well, different things that pop up, for example. All right. So related to that, I mentioned this, I'll give it to you one more time, the databases. And I know I'm sorry if I'm being like really paternal by saying like go to the databases because you know how to do this and get there, but it's kind of a cool trick. So when this one pops up, you'll notice it's A through Z. And on the left, there's one that says most frequently used databases, JSTOR. Maybe you've already all used JSTOR before. So you would check out JSTOR, pops up. And kind of like similar, it looks just like a Google search, except now you're going to be focusing on journal articles. So for the next essay, what I want you to start thinking about is doing a little bit of research using the databases in Google Scholar for start finding stuff that might be like a list of articles that are going to be interesting for you to read. Does that make sense? So starting to think about the stuff that interests you that we've been reading in class. Is it authenticity? Is it ways of thinking about gender? Is it ways of thinking of appropriation and race? And use that as a guide for you to do a little bit of research. Because now what you're doing, and I think you probably noticed in the first essay, you were like literally writing about a place in your experience. And the second one, you're kind of stepping back a little bit and doing a little bit of history, but still you. You're still doing your writing. Now we're taking it back just a little bit further, and you're getting more critical, not further from your experience, but broadening your experience by doing a little bit of research. And this is what makes us different as scholars. Scholars, we have the ability to hopefully start putting this stuff in a kind of larger social or historical context. So this next assignment, it's more about what you find and stuff that you can find that's going to be interesting and useful. Does that make sense? Questions? All right, well then, bear with me, everybody. On that JSTOR page, if you go to the JSTOR page, it has like a picture that says journals, primary sources, and books. Everybody see that? All right, I'm going to ask you to use this search term, Mexican food authenticity. And we'll see what pops up. If you are with me, you'll start to see, I just typed in Mexican food authenticity, which could be a loaded term because people define authenticity differently. We've got a couple different book chapters that pop up. The first one is about Mexican food in El Paso. The next one is about surveying the borders, authenticity in Mexican-American food packaging, imagery, and architecture. Interesting. Another about food marketing industry, and so on. There's actually one really interesting journal article. It's about the fourth or fifth down. 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth one, I'm just going to copy that and paste it so you can check this out, what this one is called. I'm like, this looks like a really interesting article. And that publication, Gastronomica, is a pretty awesome journal. The title of this article is called Dirty, Authentic, Delicious, Yelp Mexican Restaurants and the Appetites of Philadelphia's New Middle Class. Oof, this guy's writing about Yelp. Yikes. I don't know how you feel about Yelp, y'all. Do you trust it?
I haven't used it, honestly.
Big fan. Big fan.
Big fan? Really?
My mom helps me.
Oh wait, do you also contribute?
I think I'm going to start.
You should.
Because my mom is Yelp Elite and she gets like offered like free food all the time.
Wait, what?
So like they like ask her to go to places and like give them ratings.
So wait, so that she gets free food before or after?
So she is.
Oh, but
like she has like so many reviews for certain restaurants that like she'll like even places that she goes regularly, they like have seen her reviews.
So wait, so like what if they give her free food and she writes a bad review?
That's their problem.
Oh, I was
their
like,
problem.
Ooh.
She got free food in the end.
I was thinking it was. I was thinking it was the other side. Like we're giving you free food, so you'll give us a good review.
No, she actually likes to write bad reviews more than good ones.
Oh, she's the food critic. Well, sometimes though, like, well, that's one thing. That's kind of the industry of food reviewing, but it's also sometimes I don't know if you ever read these reviews. Some of them are really mean, and it's not always about the food, but more about the service. Like the person was being rude. It's true.
I'll link to my mom's account.
I mean, but not to like discount Yelp, but it seems like this article is looking at Yelp as being a way how people evaluate Mexican food, which also means like how people might rate food. And you have to imagine too that the people who are writing it are the same people who might be the culinary tourists. Like they might go into a place and it's like, well, they might have certain expectations, we would say. I think you all would probably be very different Yelp reviewers because you might, now that you had a food class, you might think how like important it is because sometimes people depend on those Yelp reviews too. It's kind of a very, very interesting market. Well, anyway, so bring it all back together, everybody. Another way of then like using JSTOR. So you already used Google Scholar. You could do the same thing as I mentioned in these notes I left you all here. Start thinking about way to use, let's say you're interested in tacos al pastor. No problem. But then maybe you might also add tacos al pastor immigration. And then you're going to start see other things that might pop up. I'll give you some others. Maybe tacos al pastor gender dynamics. Tacos al pastor racism. Tacos al pastor social class, or even something like tacos al pastor anti-immigrant, or something like that. Does that make sense, everyone? I gave you another article I mentioned, or excuse me, a title, this place called Gastronomica, which you'll find on JSTOR. That's like a really awesome academic publication for people who do food studies. So if you're interested in this stuff, you just scroll through that. And actually, you know what I'll do? Hold on a second. I'll give you the a link for them because I just saw it. And actually, just sometimes going through that publication, you might find some other stuff that is useful. So let me see if I can get these guys here. There it is. This link may work for you. I apologize if it doesn't. This goes directly to the publication called Gastronomica. And I'll just read what's on the most current. The one up here is 2016. There is there's an article about stuffed peppers in Greece. Culinary Zionism, which is like Jewish nationalism. Food porn on Twitter. I mean, whoa, cool stuff. Greek yogurt, gender, ethnicity, and Greek yogurt. So all kinds of really cool articles there that you could check out, and maybe it might lead to other stuff too. Does that make sense, y'all? Are we good at class today? Did this work out? Kind of?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just happy to see you all. It's like I wish I could be there and give you food, you know, to make it through this. I wish we could do tacos too, man, but sucks.
Just copy all that. It's online for the rest of the semester.
What?
Is it?
Yep.
Did they really just send that
Yeah,
out?
right now it just came in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. Hey guys.
Okay.
I have no idea what's going on now. Well, how about this? I'm going to be here, and we'll still keep meeting up. And then what I'll do, anyways, I'm going to update the class website. I'm going through your guys' blogs. What I'll do is I'll send the email that's going to continue on that Google Doc where I gave your last assignment comments. So you'll find below that one the next set of comments. But these all been pretty awesome, y'all. It makes me like really happy to see students writing about like tacos al pastor and like tamales. Pretty cool stuff. And also, every time like one of y'all write stuff, you definitely teach me new stuff too. So that's always good for me. So any last thoughts or questions y'all have about this stuff for today? What's up, buddy? Hello? Well, if not, don't worry about it. You can always send me an email. Oh, one thing, since you all are here, well, Ariana will be back in a second. I was going to ask if it was okay, if it's okay, I can tweet out some of your assignment dues to other people to hopefully get more people to look at your work. So if you're not interested, then you just let me know. But otherwise, I wanted to share the stuff that you're doing because it's kind of cool. All right?
Okay.
So anyway, everybody, good to see you all. Go feel better. Have a taco if you can, or a burrito or something. And what I'll do is I'll be back again same time, Thursday. Tune in for as long as you can. Bring any questions. We'll go over a little bit more of that Planet Taco stuff, and I'll have a video to share with you all. And then we'll see about maybe making Planet Taco a little bit longer and then start the next book a little bit later so we can go through a little bit slower, if that's okay. All right, y'all?
Okay.
So send me any emails or whatever if you have any questions, or you can send me a message on Instagram too. All right?
All right.
See y'all later. Take care, y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Adios. Adios.
Adios.
Okay, I'm back on this now. This is going to be really weird because I was talking to other class, the students, and you're like, what the fuck's going on? I just said that bad word. Anyway, ya está. And we'll try this one again next time. So, peace.